Welcome back, guys. We now have our lesson 3 video notes for our Ancient Rome chapter 11 unit. We are going to be talking about government and society in this section. And this is really important because a lot of our own government is based on what we get from ancient Rome, cultural diffusion. So it matters because written laws and the laws that they came up with in Rome helped to keep order and had an influence on shaping our own laws. Remember, in the early part of the Republic, the patricians were making up all the laws, and the plebeians would never know what to be expected. So this is a huge development and one that impacts us a lot today. So let's take a closer look at what Roman government actually looked like and how it was divided up. And you're going to notice there's some real big similarities to our own government. So first we have the fact that there's 3 branches. And we're going to start off with our magistrates or our elected officials. There are a couple different kinds of magistrates. The most powerful magistrates were the consuls. Now, they could only serve for 1 year, and they ran the city and led the army. Put a star by our consuls here. Now, if you remember Cincinnatus, our dictator who came and gave up power after beating Rome's enemies, he started off as a consul and ran the city and the army. Now, pay attention to that 1 year because we're going to see that again. And remember, we want to limit the power that people have. We want no more kings. So we're going to keep our terms of service very short. Now, consuls were not the only type of magistrates, just like golden retrievers aren't the only kinds of dogs, okay? There were other elected magistrates who did all sorts of other things. Once again, they are elected for just 1 year. Now, some of them served as judges, others organized games and festivals. They just kind of helped everything run smoothly. In our own society, you can kind of view this as the executive branch. I'm going to write the word president up here. Now, hopefully your handwriting is a little bit less messy than mine because that's pretty bad. But hopefully we'll know that they do the same thing. They're kind of the ones in charge at the top of the pyramid doing the everyday running. Our next branch is our Senate. Now, our Senate is made up of our patricians. And I always remember that Senate is made up of the wealthy because it's got that S. And I'm just going to turn that S, boom, right into a $sign. And these were our wealthy and powerful Romans. I want you to write the word patricians right up there. And again, horrible handwriting, I know. Hopefully yours is better. But I should see that word patricians written by the Senate. Now, they advised the city's leaders. And here's the thing about that. When you're advising someone and you have lots of money, you can kind of push things around the way you want them to. They held office for life. They were the only ones in the Roman government to do this. And you had to be a patrician to be a senator. And they took control of Rome's finances. They decided how Rome was going to spend that money right there. So not only were they the most wealthy citizens, they also had control of how Rome was going to spend its money from all those taxes and everything. So this was, even though they weren't making the laws outright, they had a lot of power here and a lot of influence on magistrates and other leaders. Now, especially after the plebeian revolt, the Romans realized that the senators should not have all of this power. So they had to be a balance, something to kind of provide a check against the Senate taking control. So we have the assemblies and tribunes who protected the common people. Now, I'm going to erase that ink so we can see it, but remember, I should have president written over here and patrician, the full word written up there. So these assemblies and tribunes, these were the branch of government that protected our plebeians. Let's write plebs right over there. All right, our common people. Everyone else other than these wealthy and powerful Romans. Now, the assemblies were made up of both patricians and plebeians. So there was a balance there, okay? But their goal was to elect the magistrates. So the Senate didn't have all the power in choosing these elected officials. Now notice, this is different than the United States. We vote for our president. Here in ancient Rome, if you were a citizen, you would vote for the assembly, and then they would choose the magistrate. Remember, Rome was not a democracy, it was a republic. The tribunes were elected by just the plebeians, so this was a really good way for the plebeians to have their own voice. And they could only serve for 1 year. Look, we see that 1 year coming again. And they could veto or prohibit actions by other officials. So if a magistrate or somebody in the Senate did something that the tribunes thought was not in the best interest of all of Rome, they could veto it. Now, veto just means I forbid in Latin, the language of the Romans, okay? So I am going to circle veto right here. So a good way to think of this, imagine if you wanted to go hang out with your friends and your mom said, nope, you have homework to do and then you got to do the dishes, so no time for you. She vetoed your plans. Now, we're going to practice more of these 3 branches of government, but it's important for us to know that its purpose was to provide balance and make sure that no one person had too much power, because remember, we did not want any more kings. All right, hang tight to see how this worked a little bit more on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, now we are on to civic duty. Your civic duty is Romans participated in government because they felt it was their responsibility to their city. An example of civic duty is obeying the laws, paying taxes, serving on a jury, or as a witness in court. Those are all modern day examples of civic duty. Now we have checks and balances. Keep any one part of the government from becoming stronger or more powerful than the others. So that would be, for instance, if you ask your mom if you can go do something and she says yes, but then you ask your dad and he says no, they're sort of checking and balancing each other to make sure that one doesn't have all the power or the say-so. That's it for me.
All right, so we want to talk about written laws and how written laws help keep order in Rome. And we have seen that without written laws, people get taken advantage of in many civilizations before. And the importance of writing in a civilization is, we can hardly measure that. It's very, very important, because when you can write things down, education can keep going. You don't have to relearn things. You don't have to worry about what the law is. It's written down. Everybody knows. And not only is the law written down, but the punishments are clear as well. And sometimes when that's not written down, punishments can change from person to person. And so in Rome, they came up with this idea of writing the laws down on 12 tables, and they would be posted in the forum where everyone could see them. And so they were first produced on bronze tablets, which I'm sure they looked really awesome in the forum, with like on a marble background like this, with each of those tables being bronze, and the laws were written out on those tablets so everyone could see them. They were displayed there, and they were called the Law of the 12 Tables. And for those of you who have seen the Mr. Nicky video, he mentions them in there and talks about how that the plebeians could now know the laws, and they were written on the 12 tables so everyone could see them and be clear on what the laws were. The purpose of all laws that are written down is to protect the rights of the people. And in this case, the laws were written down, and the plebeians, this was one of their demands, that all of the laws be written down so that everyone can see them and everybody's rights would be protected. It sounds simple, and it sounds, like, why do we even need to mention that? All the laws are written down in America, and we know right where to find all the laws, and we know exactly what the punishments are. But when you don't have access to as much information as quickly as we do today, having things written down and knowing where to find them is a big deal. And so that's why we've stressed this over and over again, that to have clear communication and everyone be on the same page is really important. And for the Romans, they don't want any one person to be any more important and have too much power than anyone else. They want everybody. They're looking for equality, and Rome is an ideal. We've talked about that, how that to be the same and equal is a good thing. And so Rome's trying to make that happen. And one of the ways that the plebeians demanded to make this happen was through the law of 12 tables. And so we can see it right there. Now, we'll do some more with that. We're actually going to look at some of these laws, and you'll get to decide whether or not you think they're fair or unfair. Extra credit for the people who can come tell us, what does this mean? That's Lady Justice right there. And what do all her symbolisms mean? All right, talk to you guys later. Bye. By symbolism, I mean all the things she's holding, the things she may have in her hands, on her face, all those things. See if you can explain that to us. All right, bye.
All right, guys, let's take a look at our hot question coming in there. So it says, how is the law of the 12 tables similar and different from other ancient law codes? So you have to come up with similar and different here. So it's two parts to the question. I want you to think about all of the previous law codes that we've learned about. I'm not going to give any specifically because that would be too easy for you. So think about everything we've learned this year, different laws, different codes, and put it all together. Remember, if you don't answer this, it is points taken off. Good luck.